Rob, your pick to get to the Super Bowl, right? Out of the AFC champion is Baltimore. I think you picked Green Bay over Baltimore.
Yes.
Bad news for the Ravens. It's been a tough preseason for them. They lost J.K. Dobbins, and now they have lost Gus Edwards to what they fear is a torn ACL. And so they're without their top 3 running backs, Rob. And then Marcus Peters, one of the top corners in the league, really. He's been a Pro Bowler a few times, 3 times, and an All-Pro, I think, twice. He has what they fear as well is a torn ACL. So, man, it's tough on them right now. Justice Hill also out, the running back with an Achilles injury. Does this alter your views on them at all, Rob? And
no,
how far you think they'll go?
I can't do that. I just got to see what they do. It's next man up in the NFL. Players are hurt. This is early enough. It's not like it's hurt. Those guys got hurt, like, say, before the AFC Championship game, or like you saw with the Chiefs. Those guys got hurt late, and it affects your team. Do you know what I mean? That's when I can
affect them, though.
Yeah, but they could also make some moves. You just don't know.
Well, they have made a few moves,
but maybe you put somebody in and they perform, or this is their opportunity. So I don't know yet. I'm not going to throw the towel in on them because a couple guys go down.
Their number one back right now is Tyson Williams, who's never rushed for a yard in the NFL. They did pick up Le'Veon Bell and Devontae Freeman. But, those guys are a little long in the tooth. Le'Veon hadn't had a productive year since 2017. But, he was talking a lot in the offseason. He said he'd never play for Andy Reid. He didn't like the way Andy Reid used him and in Kansas City. And so this is his chance, Rob. To your point, he's got an opportunity. I think his best days are way, way, way beyond him. But he's only 29 years old, and I'm sure that's something he's thinking about. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be rough for him. I'm not going to change my pick. I got him making the playoffs as a wild card. But I like Pittsburgh more than most, or more than a lot of people. I think
I don't like Pittsburgh at all. I don't like them at all.
I just think
as long as
Tomlin,
Big Ben is their quarterback, I just don't.
Big Ben wasn't bad early on. He struggled when their running game fell apart. Bud Dupree got hurt, and they just threw the ball too much. It was ridiculous. He threw the ball more than any other quarterback in the league last year, coming off that injury, and couldn't do it. But I'm not saying he's going to be great, but that defense, and they just signed, T.J. Watt, so he will be playing on opening night. But Mike Tomlin, Rob, just never had a losing record. I'm not saying I didn't pick them to make the playoffs, but I do think they're going to be very competitive. And now, if this injury really affects, or these injuries really affect Baltimore, then I wouldn't be surprised at all if Pittsburgh sneaks in there and gets into the playoffs. So that's something definitely to watch. I want to ask you this, though. We've talked. I had Lamar Jackson, Rob, as 5th. I think you may have agreed with it. I had him as of all the players, quarterbacks with the most pressure on them this season, I had him 5th. I had Lamar Jackson 5, Carson Wentz 4, Matt Stafford 3, Tua Tagovailoa 2, and Baker Mayfield 1. Do you think this increases the pressure on Lamar now that, he's without his top running backs?
I mean, obviously it makes your job different. You got to see what the other guys do who fill in. Until I see those guys, I don't know yet. Everybody's replaceable in the NFL. I mean, people get hurt all the time. You got to just keep playing. You got to keep you can't oh my God, my running back's hurt. The season's over or whatever.
Well,
you just play through it.
But I mean,
I know.
You
but
can't.
I'm
but
saying
injuries hurt.
Right, but it doesn't mean that the season's over. Is what I'm saying. I don't look at it like that. I don't think if his right arm was hurt, then maybe I look at it and say, yeah, he's gonna have a rough time.
I'm asking you about the pressure on him.
Yeah, but I'm saying the pressure, I don't think changes at all. I think that he had pressure in that he finally got the playoff win. People have expectations for that team. I don't think that pressure changed any bit today compared to where it was. People are expecting them to win the division, have a chance in the AFC, to finally be able to beat Buffalo or Kansas City and get to the Super Bowl. That's their goal. They've had a good team the last couple of years. They matched up as far as wins with anybody the last couple of years since he took over as quarterback. So I'm expecting the pressure level to be the same.
I actually think the pressure on him decreases a bit because, I think any objective observer is looking at it and saying he doesn't have a quality back. Now, again, unless Le'Veon Bell or Devontae Freeman, who's older than Bell, unless they can turn back the clock several years, he does not have a back, at least at this point that we know of, that's really going to be able to give him that support. And he's had that in the past. I mean, he obviously is the key to the running game. But, Mark Ingram a couple years ago was nice for him. And then last year they had a nice running back by committee situation with Dobbins and Edwards. So I think this actually, it's not an excuse. It's a legitimate, scenario where their running backs are out and hurt. And this is a running team. And not just Lamar, but period. Even his receivers, Rashad Bateman's, battle with some injuries. Sammy Watkins has a history of struggling with injuries. So it's going to be interesting. And I mentioned Marcus Peters. I don't want to belittle that as well because, he's a tough defensive back corner. So I think this actually, they're not looking at it, Rob, like that, and they shouldn't. And I know Lamar. Lamar is just he's always got tunnel vision, and that's one thing that's allowed him to be so successful, not worrying about anything outside of what he has to do. So I think that's the proper approach. But I do think it's a legitimate explanation for them to maybe have a tougher time than people expect when you got all these injuries.
Yeah, I think you go into a season and you hope you have all your players, but that's just not how the NFL works. We just see way too many injuries of people going down, and the best teams or the good teams are the ones that are able to just be able to survive and move on. Does it make your job harder? Sure it does. But does it mean your season's over? No. So I'm just saying I think he has the same pressure, the pressure of getting to the postseason, the same pressure of winning another playoff game, maybe another playoff round to try to get closer to that Super Bowl or to actually get there. And that pressure is going to remain the same no matter who's playing on him, because people still are going to look at him on a Sunday and say, how well did he play? What did he do?
Right.
Sure, he didn't have his running back, but if you don't complete passes or you don't do what you're supposed to, it's going to be on his head. So I don't think he's looking at those guys saying, oh, I'm off the hook now. I got an excuse if we don't win.
Yeah, he certainly is. No player would be. But from the outside looking in, I think it takes a little bit of the pressure off. But, yeah, he's still, the goal is to get them to the playoffs and see where they go from there. Now, you picked him to be the MVP. Do you expect him to have another 1,000-yard rushing season, or you think he's going to throw it, better than he ever has?
No, I think it's going to be a combination. I think both. I actually think both. I think he'll get back to that, and so maybe he'll run 1,000. Maybe he'll run a little bit more now with the situation, depending on where the running backs are and what they can give him, the fill-ins. And maybe he just decides, I need to do a little bit more. I know I cut back last year. This year, I'll change it up. People thinking I'm just going to stay in the pocket and be that passer. You know what I mean? Why would I give up an asset that I have? And it allowed me to be the unanimous MVP in this league. So maybe I mix it in. Maybe I throw off the defenders who now are playing back and off the line thinking he's going to stay in the pocket and try to take the next step throwing. Not that he's going to not throw or abandon it, but I think he should look back at running the ball.
I feel like every year that goes on, he's going to run a little bit less. And, he only ran it a few times less last year than the year before. But I just think, with the hits.
He's still a young
take.
guy. How old is he? Is he 25 yet?
He's 24, I believe. 24. But those hits can put that age on you. That's one reason I think Cam Newton is an old 32, and Lamar has not taken the hits that Cam has. He's been great at avoiding those big hits for the most part. But I think he'll do a little more pass. I think he'll run a little bit less. I don't expect him to get 1,000 yards rushing. But to your point, he may have to try to do that now with the injuries that they have. So